When I first bought that rifle, the only bullets I could find were these Burger hybrid OTM tactical bullets. They are a 250 grain 338 bullet. Now these have a decent ballistic coefficient, right? They've got a, well, here, you can see the ballistic data on it. And so I, said, okay, these are the only bullets I could find. I loaded these, or I brought these bullets home. It took me weeks before I was able to source any powder or any primers for this rifle. When I finally did find powder, it was this dodgy looking ancient can of powder. And then I way overpaid to get Magnum rifle primers at a local gun show. So when I give you numbers like how much I paid for a loaded round, it should probably be lower than that if I hadn't gotten scalped on the primers and on the really dodgy looking powder. But I came home, and bear in mind, this was, early summer 2020. So there were, early summer 2021. So it's not like I could find a lot of components. And to be blunt, I still haven't seen factory ammo for this rifle. Like, I put a down payment on some in February, and I still haven't gotten it. So at this point, I'm starting to think I just made a donation to the gun shop. Anyhow, I came home, I decided to load some up, and I couldn't find load data for this bullet plus this powder plus this primer. Okay? So what I did, I went on Hodgdon's website, because that is Hodgdon powder. And on Hodgdon's website, there was some guidance for substitutions. So I took a look at this bullet, and I found, again, this is the Burger Hybrid OTM Tactical, and I found the closest bullet in weight and material that I could that Hodgdon had load data for. Okay? And using Hodgdon's guidance on their website, guidance for substitutions, what I came up with was the load data for actually these Hornady bullets. So I took the load data for these Hornady bullets, and I used instead my Burger bullets with that load data. Now, what I got, I had to give this some thought, okay? In my little homemade reloading manual, which is just printouts from various bullet and powder manufacturers, I was able to put together load data for the 338, 378 Weatherby Magnum. This is I think this is the Norma load data. So I came back here. I took the Hodgdon powder load data for that caliber. Okay. And I combined it with the Burger load data for that bullet. So in other words, what I did was I loaded this round as though it were the Hornady bullet to get my powder weights. But then I went to the Burger website and I got the bullet, the case trim length and the cartridge overall length. In other words, the bullet seating depth from Burger. And yes, I started out at the lowest possible powder charge and worked up with very careful attention paid to signs of pressure. But the reason I'm telling you this story is to tell you that although this exact bullet, right, loaded, looks a little bit dodgy, this is the best load data I could find. And when I found something that worked reasonably well and wasn't blowing me up, I stopped. Well, after a while, I started finding other options. I found the Spear bullets. I was given hand-me-down Hornady bullets, and all of a sudden I had real live load data for this bullet plus this powder plus those primers. And by the way, I ended up with 3 of these over the course of, for some reason, my local gun shop, I ended up with a whole pile of this stuff, and I, swooped in and got the purchase limit, the per customer limit they'd let me buy. Okay, so I ended up with sort of Frankenstein load data from combining the load data from the powder manufacturer and the bullet manufacturer. Now, as things are opening up a little bit, it's December of 2021 now, and I bought this rifle in January, so I've had it 11 months, and I've been spending the better part of a year trying to, crack the nut of getting this thing loaded and in action. I'm seeing more powder options when I'm in the store. So one of the things I intend to do, certainly over the next few months, probably not in the next few weeks, is to go into the store and see if I can locate some of the actual powder that I have load data for from Berger. Okay? So say, hey, let's use real live load data here. But I'm still not at all convinced that that's a healthy looking load. That bullet is too deep in there. Now, one of the issues with this rifle is that, that's a pretty good size round. If I pull this bullet out too far, I'm not going to be able to use the magazine of the rifle. I will effectively turn it into a single shot rifle. That's okay for long range shooting. It's not great for hunting. So I go through all that story to tell you that the next steps of setting up this rifle, the first was getting a hunting load. Well, I've got a hunting load. I'm content that the 250 grain Hornady bullet on 97 grains of powder, that's a hunting load that I will happily haul into the bush 2022 next year. That's going to be my hunting round for the foreseeable future. And if I can source more of these bullets instead of just working on the hand-me-down box, I'll actually play a little bit more with that and see if I can tune it. At the moment, I don't have bullets to spare. So first I got a hunting round. So virtually all the load development I've done for this rifle, I've done with hunting in mind, not with long distance shooting in mind. I would love to do long distance shooting, but I felt like getting a good hunting load was my first priority. So you can see yesterday I shot whatever that is, 3, 6, 12, 16 rounds. So this is the final group I got with the Hornady 250 grain bullets. This is 250 grain bullets sitting on 97 grains of H4831. And you can see it's 1.25 inches. The second project I'm going to work on, the second phase of this project, is going to be setting up a long distance round. Now, I'm not a long distance shooter. I want to try long distance shooting, but it's not something I've really done before. So I'm starting, honestly, at ground zero with that. But I figure the first step is to get something that groups well at 100 yards. Then I can stretch that out. And that brings me to my third goal, right? So hunting round, long range round. Third goal is I am not content with how well I shoot that rifle. I feel like I should be shooting that rifle significantly better than I do. Some of what's going on with that is just the dodginess of this last year. Ammo was really hard to source, and when you could source it, it was expensive. So there is a tendency to be miserly with your ammo, and being miserly with ammo is not a good way to get in the practice to shoot. This thing's not set up very well for me. Let me make some adjustments. Oh, hey there. All right, let's try that again. Some of that is I was having so many problems with my scope. Now that my scope's not moving around, it makes sense to shoot. But when the scope kept moving around, it was really hard to justify a lot more trigger time. Who knows where it's going? All right. Here's the first round. Fire in the hole. That was loud. I need to spend more time at the range actually shooting. I guess that brings me to the last topic, which is the question of recoil. And I think I've put this on video so many times, but I don't think I've actually sort of made it public. The recoil for the 338/378 Weatherby Magnum with the muzzle brake installed, I haven't been shooting it without the muzzle brake, is approximately equal to a 45-70. It's about the same as a 12 gauge slug. It's not terrible. It's not what I thought. I thought that thing was gonna throw me on the ground. I thought it was gonna be painful to shoot. I had all these horror stories in my mind the first time I squeezed the trigger. It's not that bad. When I had an elk in my sights, I didn't even notice the recoil because I was too excited about the elk in my sights. So reasonably, you know, if I took the muzzle brake off, the recoil would be pretty stout. I'm pretty sure if I took the muzzle brake off, it would hurt. Ultimately, as long as the muzzle brake's on that rifle, it's not that terrible. It's reasonable. It's within the realm of, yeah, that's not so bad. So those are my 3 goals for the Weatherby rifle over the next few months now that we're into serious winter. The hunting load, which I think we've already accomplished. The long distance shooting load, which will work with what the components we have, but the next time I'm in town, I'm going to see if I can find a better powder. And personally, my shooting on it. The third thing is actually kind of the hardest to do. No one wants to tell you this, but at my age, one of the things I have learned is that every tool, no matter how foolproof, has a learning curve. And the Weatherby rifle learning curve is not the same learning curve that you might have on an AR-15 or on your Glock. It's a different learning curve because it's a different kind of gun. You can't buy your way into shooting well. If you buy a nice gun, that doesn't make you a good shooter. It just means you have a nice gun. I really like my Weatherby. It's a nice gun. And I enjoy having a nice gun. But the reality is that I need to put the time in on it to get good at it. And I don't think just going out wildly, blasting through as much ammo as I can is the answer. I'm not advocating that. But last Saturday, when I was shooting groups to try to figure out which load I wanted to work with, I was kind of embarrassed at how poorly I shot. I mean, there was no one there, and my camera stopped working, so no one will ever see it. Oh, I see. Okay. But ultimately, I feel like I could have done better. Not happy with what I'm seeing down there through the scope.